The game of hot potato over North Carolina's Supreme Court race continues. This is the election that just won't end. Today, a federal court heard some arguments in this case. Now, we've talked about this many times here at 7 o'clock. We'll give you one quick recap here. Democrat incumbent Allison Riggs, that's her on the right. She leads Republican Jefferson Griffin on the left there by 700 and so votes out of like millions and millions. It's an incredibly tight race. Griffin wants, though, to throw out 60,000 ballots because of some errors made by elections officials. And he thinks that tossing out those ballots could make up that margin that he is losing by, and to where he would actually be the one who wins the race. So it's all playing out in court after court after court. Now, right now, we're going to bring you live outside of the federal court, where there's been a hearing from both sides here on the argument. WRAL state government reporter Will Doran joining us there. So let's just start with what happened today. Will, give us a sense of what both sides kind of argued in the courtroom.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so this case was not about the merits of this argument and whether or not we are going to throw out all of those 60,000 plus ballots. This was about who gets to make that decision. Now, on one hand, you have Allison Riggs and the State Board of Elections. They say voting rights are a constitutional issue. This belongs in federal court, like this federal court behind us where we had these arguments today. On the other side, you have Jefferson Griffin saying that this is a state election for the state Supreme Court involving the state elections board, and it needs to be heard in state court. Now, complicating all of this is also the fact, and informing why they want this, federal courts have already ruled previously against the arguments that Griffin is making here. However, state courts have not weighed in on those same issues yet, and the state Supreme Court is controlled by a majority of Republicans.
All right. I think I got you, but let's just walk through it a little bit, because I want you to briefly explain the bit that's kind of confusing me a little bit. It's all the different courts where this is going. So you got the case both in federal court and state court. What is the real difference here? What if one court rules in favor of Riggs and the other court rules in favor of Griffin? And who are we to listen to? Whose ruling matters most, I guess?
Well, that is such a complicated question that's actually what they spent most of 90 minutes today arguing about. And the fact that this is moving forward in both courts at the same time is incredibly rare. And even the judges themselves didn't really know how to address that fact. That's what they were really grilling the attorneys on today. And so it's a really complicated issue, and it's one that could eventually go to the United States Supreme Court to weigh in on, just because there doesn't seem to be a clear answer. And in fact, going to the Supreme Court of the United States, that's exactly what at least one of the judges on the bench suggested publicly during the oral arguments today. All
right, so that's already being thrown out there as a possible solution here. Let's talk about something else, and it's really what is at the center of this, and it's that 60,000 ballots at the center of the case. They were picked out specifically because they were missing identifying information. One of our viewers we've had a lot of questions about it, but there was one I want to read you from a specific viewer named BJ. BJ wrote in and said, the Democrats weren't sloppy. The information missing from registrations was not required when these citizens first registered to vote legally many years earlier. So is he right in saying that, or do all these votes will kind of have a different story? Give us an idea about how sloppy the Democrats were, or if this is something that was kind of put into place years ago.
Yeah, well, is he right that this didn't used to always be the case? Yes. It was until about 20 years ago that the state didn't used to require this information. So anyone who had registered to vote 20 plus years ago hasn't moved or updated their registration since then. Yeah, he's right. They would not have had to have provided this information to the state, and they would be kind of grandfathered in with having this missing information. But at the same time, in those 20 years since then, when the state has been supposed to collect this information, they have not always been doing that. Most people they do have the information on, but these 60,000 voters challenged here, and actually several thousand more who aren't being challenged, they do have that missing data when the state was supposed to be collecting it. So it wasn't always an issue, but it has been an issue in recent years. To the point about the partisan affiliation, yes, the Democrats do control the State Board of Elections right now. However, Republicans have also controlled the State Board of Elections at that point. They had the control up until 2016. So this is a problem that has existed under both political parties' control of the Elections Board, and it's just being brought up now.
That's a good point. All right, Will, thank you so much. I don't envy you having to sort all this out, but we really appreciate you helping us understand it the best we can. Thanks for the reporting.
I do feel like I have understood it a little bit more. It is quite the saga.